Alright guys, we are back with some more MX versus ATV Legends gameplay, early gameplay to show you. So, we've got Supercross today. It was something I wanted to do in the first video, but it didn't work out that way, so we're checking it out today. We do have a handful of Supercross tracks to show you, 2 laps on this track, and 2 laps on the final track, and then a handful of Supercross tracks in the middle with just 1 lap, okay? In my opinion, the laps I got today were kind of hot laps. They weren't the fastest, but they were pretty smooth and pretty good. So I also have three things I want to talk about in this video as well. The first is tracks and track design, the whoops, and the terrain deformation. I saw a few comments asking about it, and I didn't really comment on it in the first video, so we're going to comment on it here at the end. But to start things off, let's talk about the tracks. So the tracks, I enjoyed the Supercross tracks from All Out. I did. These tracks I feel like are a little bit better, and the reason I say these feel a bit better is because they feel scaled to the way the game plays better than All Out was. So in All Out, you could hit crazy big lines, right? And you can do it in this game too, but not to the extent, at least as of right now, not to the extent you can do or could do in All Out. Okay, so an example would be the Supercross Triples. So in All Out, the Supercross Triples were like really easy to overjump. Most of them were really tiny. And in All Out, you had tons of speed, so you were constantly overjumping the Supercross Triples in that game. They just felt too tiny. And in this game, it really isn't that way. So yeah, you can overjump stuff for sure, but it isn't as easy to do it. And for some of the Supercross Triples that are easier to overjump, they added like an extension, like a roller after it, so it's more a quad, I guess. And that kind of saves you from overjumping. So if you're going to overjump, hit it a bit harder and quad. Now there is quite a bit of line choice on these tracks. You can, a lot of times you can like triple in, double, or double, triple out. There's a bunch of stuff set up that way, but there's also rhythm sections that have like a split lane on them. Kind of where, you know, the right side is raised and the left side is not raised, and you can hit different lines through that rhythm section that way, or step on, step off, or quad over. I mean, there's a bunch of different line choice on these Supercross tracks for the most part, and I feel like it turned out pretty good. I feel like it does work good in the game. Now, going back to the overjumping triples, you can... The way the game is and the way the game plays as of right now, it isn't easy to overjump, but you can overjump. And then sometimes you have trouble where you underjump because you're trying to not overjump. Definitely scrubbing is a big part of the game, because it can be easy in a rhythm section if you're trying to double in instead of triple, or you can't quite get the triple. You kind of need to scrub so you don't overjump case and then you can't hit anything, because there is an animation, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there is an animation that you get when you get out of control, and when you do that you can't get on the throttle. Okay, so definitely scrubbing if you're gonna overjump, you gotta do it for sure. The other thing I want to talk about relating to the tracks is that when you crash, I don't think you've seen us crash yet, but we crash. When you crash, the reset time, whoa, it takes a while. So they punish you. The game punishes you for crashing, for sure. You know, if you have a 10-second lead, that disappears really fast when you start crashing. Even just one crash, the AI or a player is going to be right up on you after that. So yeah, the crashing, the reset timer is really long. So just something to keep in mind. But let's switch over to the whoops. The whoops in this game, and it's fitting, this is Foxborough, I believe. Excuse me. And these whoops were really Really, 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 really tough. I crashed at the very end of that constantly, so I had to keep redoing the lap because I didn't want to have that crash at the end. But the whoops, the best way I found to take them is to use the left stick, push it forward, stand the rider up, and then let go of it, lean back, and hit the whoops that way. Most of the time, you can get through the whoops and the front wheel doesn't drop. But if that front wheel drops in the whoops, you're done. You're done. You're gonna crash. I mean, if I hit a big whoop section, a tough whoop section 10 times in a row, no joke, like 6 or 7 of them, I crash. So sometimes you might see us, if it's a short whoop section, we kind of jump through it. If it's a really tough whoop section, we might take it easy on how we enter the whoops just to get our front end up. So the whoop section, I actually really love that the whoops are tough in this game. Now, with more time in the game, yeah, I'm sure players will find better ways to do the whoops and become whoop pros, but for right now, they're tough for me, okay, for me. And like I was saying, I enjoy that because most of the time whoops, I mean, they're just tiny little bumps on the track. You don't even notice them really. So this time they made sure to know, oh my goodness, there's a whoop section coming up. Prepare for it. I mean, wild. They're really tough. So yes, terrain deformation is the final thing I want to talk about. Someone was asking if there was terrain deformation. Maybe you couldn't see it at the compound that well, but yes, if you've been watching, there is terrain deformation in the game. Now, that being said, some tracks feel like they definitely have higher terrain deformation on them than other tracks. So the sand typically has a pretty high terrain deformation, but the tracks that have the sand on them generally felt like they had a higher terrain deformation. So the terrain deformation, the way it works is if you cut a line in a corner and then come around to hit that corner again, if you ride over that rut, you feel it. It's rough. And I'm assuming if you could hit that same rut over and over and over again, you're going to get a pretty nasty rut forming in that corner. Now, on some tracks, the terrain deformation feels pretty light, which is okay. I mean, they probably want some variety. Maybe not everybody wants that insane terrain deformation, so some tracks have it, but it's much lighter, and then other tracks have it, and it's like, whoa, look out. Multiplayer, max laps on the track, it's gonna get insane. There was a Supercross triple out of a corner, a 90-degree corner. I think I was using the quad, but it really doesn't matter. I couldn't even hit that triple anymore. That corner got so choppy and just really rough that the back end was just all over the place, and I couldn't hit that Supercross triple, and that was after like 1 lap or 2 laps. So again, some of the tracks have such crazy terrain deformation that after 1 lap or 2 laps in a full lobby, it gets really, really rough, and it makes it much more difficult to negotiate the track. So yes, it does have terrain deformation. You will see it here. This is Denver, I think. In the sand, pay attention to it, because I do have one, I wouldn't say it's a complaint, but one thing I noticed, and the way the rut forms behind the bike, you can see it forming behind us in third person, but sometimes it feels like that rut that's being formed is too wide, right? You'll see it in the sand here. I wish they could narrow that down a bit. Also, before we end the video, the grass has grass deformation. I noticed that in All Out at the High Point replica track, and I remember Roncada commenting on that video saying that that was something he was really proud of. It was something that he was working on and excited to show us, but they didn't really talk about it because it wasn't, you know, the main part of the game. But the grass deformation looked amazing in that game, and they have it in this game too. So yes, there is a terrain deformation, but not all tracks are equal. Some tracks have more than others, and The only complaint I have really with the terrain deformation is that I wish the rut wasn't so wide, right? More narrow to fit the width of the bike tire, right? So yes, this is Supercross. This is a first look at some of the Supercross tracks. There are Supercross tracks that are insanely difficult. Seattle would have been one of those tracks. St. Louis, that was just too difficult for me to play at this time. Would have needed a lot more time in the game to feel comfortable getting a good lap around that track. So yes, there are easier Supercross tracks and tougher Supercross tracks, but let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'd be curious to see, but you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. It really does mean a lot, and until the next video, take it easy.